Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dudes and dudettes, gadgets and gadget zens, welcome to Day 9 Daily number 664 on Monday, January 6, 2014. It's time to learn to be a better gamer in this brand new year. I'm going to take this off, not because I'm necessarily hot, but because this thing... Oh, there's the matching one. I couldn't find it earlier. Never mind. We can even this out right now. My OCD was going to go crazy if I had to look at myself with only one little dongly thingy hanging down. But now that we've successfully done that, welcome to the show. It's the first daily of the year. And in today's episode, we're going to do something nice and standard. Forged from the fires of the original starting show of the daily. We're just going to analyze a 1v1 game. That's it. There's going to be no specific topic or focus of one player or the other, or of a strategy, or of any metagame notes. We're just going to do a show. It's going to be really good. Hope you had yourself a wonderful and restful break. I didn't do anything. I did nothing. I didn't even get a haircut, which I need. And my hairdresser's booked until Saturday. So until then, you're going to have to look at these beautiful, wispy locks. First of all, a couple of shout-outs. I'd like to give a thanks to Forbes. I was in 30 under 30, yeah! Along with J Dong and Alex Garfield, and who's the owner of Evil Geniuses, and The Gun Run, who truly is the biggest hero known to esports. Like, I'm sure a lot of you know I'm a huge fan of Twitch. Obviously, I stream here, but I do nothing but like watch Twitch in my free time. Like, there is never not a Twitch stream on one of my screens, and a big reason why those continue to exist is because of fine folks like Gunrun and Justin Wong, who's also on there. God, Gunrun is the best. Gunrun. Okay, so there's customer support, which is where I reach out to you and I'm like, dude, shit's going wrong. Can you help? And they're like, whoa, let's make sure that we get you some help. And that's normally considered good customer support. But Gunrun just messages me. He's like, hey, I've been watching your stream, and you might want to consider this keyframe timing and this thing to increase the crispness. And I'm like, the crispness? Done. And that's why I'm so crispy today. I'd also like to give a shout out to Awesome Games Done Quick that's running right now. I think they're doing Deus Ex right now. I'd like to give a shout out to whoever is texting Tristan. Oh, he's a popular guy. He's hiding somewhere behind the green screen, which is very wrinkly today. Yeah, if you are not a viewer of speedruns, you should be, and you should watch Awesome Games Done Quick. There you go. And if you want to know where it is, just go to twitch.tv. Who'd have thought? Look at this. Awesome Games Done Quick is a speedrunning marathon that raises money to help fight cancer and to provide for cancer research. Awesome. Now that I look like some sort of product from Dairy Queen, let's go into the show. I'm a huge fan of Scarlett. I'm a huge fan of Ryung. I'm a fan of Axiom and Acer. Oh, so excellent. And this is from the Acer Team Story Cup Finals run by Take TV, whose admin just departed. Take TV does a fantastic job with these events, and this was game 9 of the best of 9. Oh my god. So there's a lot of intensity and tension on the line. It's on Newkirk Precinct TE. We have our good friend Ryung down here in this bottom side, being the Terran pieces. And normally on this map, what we'd... Dude, this mouse, I gotta get a new mouse here. This mouse just does not aim at all. That's fine. We're going to be missing a lot. We're going to be trying to click on stuff going every which way. No big deal. Delicious California tap water. Now, ordinarily with this matchup, we don't really... We've seen a lot of the big shifts that have gone on in the matchup since the mine nerf. The Widow Mine... Oops, that's a point defense drone. God, I always do that. The Widow Mine used to be like the absolute sickest core piece of every Terran army, and you could really do kind of whatever you wanted to. Build mines for defense, and then use all the mines in the offense, and it would be like way too strong. But nowadays, with the mine being weak, you can't cut as many corners defensively. What allowed Terran players to be able to go for that 3 command center stuff so fast was that Widow Mine. On the defense. On the D. It was the mine on the D that really made all Terran players so happy. And this is why we start to see Terrans being more aggressive early on. Right off the bat, we see Ryung is going to be going for a gas opening to be able to get the Reaper. I like this. Scarlett, I haven't even talked about her at all. Because Zergs are still doing the same thing. They're still just trying to go mutiling and stay alive. And that's it. That's all Zergs do. Mutiling! Mutiling bling! Etc., 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 etc. Alright, cool. Now, the important things to note are the movement paths, the scout paths. Normally, this Overlord cannot actually make it here before the Marine poppeth out. As we can see, if a Marine were to start right now, it takes 25 seconds, so it would be done in time to repel this Overlord. However, it's frequent enough for a Reaper to come out first that sending the Overlord this way actually is really good. Normally a Marine would be getting pretty close to popping out, probably around 310 to 315, and this Overlord would die. So this is why Scarlett's dancing back and forth and all that stuff. And okay, we don't see a Marine. Great, so that means Scarlett can get to this nice back position deep into the recesses of the Terran main base, spot the expansion, and then later on use this Overlord to suicide in. And this is such a simple, clean, not complicated example of a complicated thing. Either-or analysis. Pretty much anything in StarCraft can be boiled down to either-or statements. He's either getting Marine, or he's not getting a Marine because he's going Reaper. And very often, the way people will incorrectly analyze is to treat either-or situations as and situations. So in this example, the mistake to do is to say he has a barracks. He could go Marine, he could go Reaper. I have to deal with both of those. So I can't send the Overlord in. Why? Because what if he builds a Marine? He'll kill it. They're acting as though he will always have both a Marine and a Reaper. But in this case, if we don't see a Marine pop out, we can go, oh, okay, great. So, for instance, what a lot of players I see do mistakenly on this map is just send the Overlord here. Because again, it is possible for it to be a Marine. Hope that's a reasonable explanation. Oh, and our other friendly Overlord, I really liked it. I'm going to come to this thing. I think Scarlett is fantastic at doing really subtle moves with the every single thing that she has. So, first this Overlord... Actually, I need to go back to the 2-minute 11-second mark. This Overlord first cuts down in a way such that can see the ramp, can see the space in front, heads out to where very normally a proxy is. All the while building drones, building all the dronies. Checking for proxy here, checking for proxy here, and just in case, checking for proxy up here. Nothing, we're good. Okay, now we're moving out. Now, here's another one of these either-or analyses that most Zergs don't... Actually, it took me a long time to even see a Zerg do this. In fact, it's so simple that it's easy to just completely not think about it. Here is the thing that Zergs used to do. They used to say, okay, where are the good hiding spots for Overlords where they're safe from Marines? Well, there's one here, obviously in the back, but we have one here. What about in the middle of the map? Well, this is a safe spot where we can park stuff. Up here's a safe spot. Well, maybe we can go over here. That seems to be a pretty safe spot. Here wouldn't be safe because a Marine could just come up and kill us. Yeah, these cliffs, etc., 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 etc. And it was to the point where we even saw, you know, like Apollo's famous Overlord charts, where he'd be like, Overlord 1 goes here, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all that jazz. But remember, Either he's building a lot of Marines, in which case you do need to have your Overlords cloistered back and protected on the high grounds, or he's going Hellions, and he's probably not going to have any Marines there. So, Scarlett has her Overlord in a position where it could pull back to one of these things at any time, but by seeing this Reaper, and then, of course, Reactor and Factory to follow it up, Scarlett can actually just leave Overlords in places like this. No Marine is ever going to be coming out this far unless there's a lot of Marines. So this is a completely safe spot directly over the huge Acer Esports logo. And I love that sort of shabazz. Another adjustment from Ryung that I'm increasingly a fan of in this time when mines are fragile. That's kind of how we began the show, talking about how fragile mines are now. We need some defensive tool early on. We can't just rely on the mines. And big changes are bad, adjustments are always good. So rather than throw down the factory and then the reactor, he just goes reactor, then factory. And in this fashion, Ryung can just get out an extra round of Marines or two. Again, look at the Overlords placed over absolutely empty space. Speeding things up, AcerScarlett's getting 4 queens. 4 queens is good. Nothing wrong with 4 queens. On a map like this, it makes a ton of sense because look at this huge open space with pretty far distance to the 3rd and what would be the 4th. Anytime there's a lot of space, I say more queen the merrier. Especially with this huge openness of a front. Now this... doesn't this make you feel good? Doesn't this just cheer you up? Ryung, one of the best Terrans in the history of StarCraft 2. One of the absolute premier Terrans, top 4 in GSL, has landed his factory off by 1 tile and not immediately fixed it. Oh my god, what a relief. Oh my god, I thought it was restricted to just me. Don't worry, Ryung does it too. Have you ever force fielded your ramp just 1 square off? Have you ever hit C to build a reactor when you meant to hit X to build a tech lab? The worst ever, the worst misclick, the most common misclick, was Psionic Storm in Brood War. The upgrade for Psionic Storm was P for Psionic. But the hotkey to cast Storm is T. But you know what happens if you press T on a Templar Archives in Brood War? You'd research the I don't remember what it's called. It's like Kadarin Talisman. It's the plus 50 energy upgrade for a Dark Archon. It's like the most useless upgrade. Like, oh, cool, now I can mind control End Maelstrom on a maxed energy Dark Archon. Yeah, value. Oh, God. It's hurt. Ugh. Anyways, we see Ryung doing some, I would say some rather reasonable things, going straight for the Banshee stuffs. Because why? Well, it's a real pain in the ass to defend in the mid-game with crappy mines. So we're just going to go ahead and go Hellion Banshee. Seems pretty good. Yeah. I don't think I explained that very well because my ADD kicked in and I stopped paying attention. Yeah, Hellion Banshee, always going to be a great mid-game or early opening that deals with a lot of mid-game threats. Big Zergling, Baneling bust, no problem. We got the free Banshees. Or the free kills from the Banshee. If he tries to go for something like a Roach bust on the layer tech, well, still we have the Banshees there and we can deal damage to him. And generally speaking, Zergs are just not really that prepared for it. Zergs have tended to just kind of presume the transition into mine, because that's really what everyone's been doing, but Scarlett is so freaking good. First of all, look at the Overlords spread out in the middle of open area. Why? Because if he is going Marines, then everything here is going to die. But if he's not going Marines, then he's going for something like Reactor Hellions. So yeah, this is going to be perfect against Reactor Hellions. So we got to make sure that he's not going for a big mass Marine play. And thank goodness for Mr. Overlord that went here at the start of the game. It will be heading in at the 7-minute mark, right when all big key tech paths will reveal their ugly heads. And generally, if you can't spot what a Terran's doing, there's like 50 possible things that he could be up to. But if you see what he's doing, you can narrow it down to one. Ah, it's so good. So, a couple of just minute things from Scarlett. I gotta come back here. We're gonna go through the early game of this long match, just to be able to look at these key timings. 5:30 has become a pretty typical time on these 4 queen openings to throw down double gas. 5:30, of course, to go straight for the Zergling speed when we can. We want our stuff to stay alive. Sometimes people get mega greedy and go straight for the 1-1 upgrades, but I think it's better to get the speed first just for consistency. Sometimes you'll get way ahead by having your super fast 1-1 upgrades. Other times you will get completely wrecked in the early game because you don't have speed. But swiftly after taking this base, Scarlett insta-double gasses. And it's pretty much expected. With this amount of production, there's no real reason not to. The only difficulty is trying to make sure that you have a good split of workers. But we have the worker count listed right there, so that's no real big deal. 7-minute for the 2 Evo chambers to go down. And then when we return back to the Scarlett cam, we see her scouting all the things, seeing everything that's up. Knows that she's up against not a huge amount of Marines. Knows that she's up against fast Banshee, so she's in great shape. And just like a layer at this point. One of my favorite things about pretty much every good Zerg build that's out there is all you really need to remember is the first set of timings, and then you just get everything else that you can when you can afford it. So, for instance, in this circumstance, when would Scarlett get the lair? Well, just whenever she has the gas to get the lair. When would she throw down a macro hatch? Well, when, after she spent all the money on the larva, she has like 300 left over, so you just build a macro hatch. And a lot of times, in the early game, when I say times, that is the trigger for you to do something. Like if you go for 5:30 double gas as your first 2 gases, that's a good timing. Things work out nicely there. But then we have other things like I say, wow, that's like an 8-minute, 15-second fourth hatch. That is not so much a trigger like, oh, it's 8:15, it's time to get a macro hatch up. That's like a benchmark timing where you can be like, I was playing sloppy because I only could afford that hatch at around 8:30 or 8:45. Yeah. So of course, as Scarlett sees this, there's a really important signal, which is that this is glowing. One of the big reasons Scarlett does send this Overlord in at 7 is so it can see a glowing tech lab. If this isn't glowing, often you can cut back some on spore crawlers, but, gotta build spore crawlers. Easy peasy. What I love is the placement of these spore crawlers by Scarlett. One is planted very far over from where the Banshee would be entering. These Overlords immediately moving out to begin to spot those so the Queen can get into position. One at the back here because it's very common for a Banshee to come in at this angle. Where Scarlett isn't going to be placing one is obviously a place like this that's already sort of behind this wall of stuff. Actually, if I just look at the minimap, like this is sort of the wall that we want to be making where we don't really want to let him pass. So this placement up here, I really like a lot. This placement here, I like less. Tucking it way back there is problematic for what we were talking about earlier. But this spore crawler here kind of protects us from having to put this one in here. Because again, it makes a nice cup along the top side and a sort of cup along the bottom side. And sure, technically, we can have him flying Banshees right across this middle segment to the back there. But then we just sort of crunch in on him with the queens. But the Spore Crawler at the front, I freaking love. That's like one of my favorite moves Scarlett makes all game long. And definitely my favorite thing that Ryung's doing here is, one, just hitting the front, man. There's no shame in just beating down the closest location. Ryung at any point can easily retreat here. But also, too, love that Ryung is still barreling out Hellion Banshee. What a bad ass. So I think we'll just watch a little bit longer. Now, in situations like this, it can sometimes be very difficult to do all the things you want to do money-wise. Like, obviously, Scarlett's not getting upgrades and had to get all these Spore Crawlers up and that sort of thing. But, again, what I like so much about really good Zerg builds is you just know the initial timings, and then you just tell yourself, oh yeah, I'm going to need 2-2, and I'm going to need Spire, and I'm going to need Overlord speed, and I'm going to need a macro hash, and I'm going to need a third base. If you just kind of have that list is the most important thing in your mind, then you're not going to be going, oh crap, I had to do something at 8:15. What was that? What do I need to do now? You just go, alright, is my 1-1 started? Is my Spire started? Is everything else getting started? So we'll just go through this last moment, where Ryung never plunges deep into Scarlett's base. Kind of stays reserved. Pretty niftily. Yeah. Cool. Just, I mean, like, even moves like this are really non-committal, because the retreat path is totally open. But I like the fact that Scarlett still has the wherewithal to continue to add in upgrades, to make the queens spread out, to begin getting a Spire. I would say the most important thing when up against someone who's very aggressively Hellion Banshee-ing is the Spire. Because there's just not that much stuff that a Hellion Banshee player can have for anti-air after this point. So here's where we're going to stop. Part 1. This is a position that, from the Zerg point of view, very traditionally, we would consider the game over, right? Oh, God, I tried really hard. I wanted to be the best player in the world, but I lost my base. I need my third base. Ugh. This is where Zergs get bummed. However, we're going to step back in. We're going to look at everything from Zerg's point of view to see how okay Zerg is and what a potential Zerg response is. And to do this, we're going to see what the effect of this attack was on the Terran economy. How even an attack dealing as much damage as Ryung's does comes at a cost for the Terran player. So stay tuned and stuff.